Did you hear me breathe? I'm alive and well. Good morning. How you doing? I'm George Johnson. I'm your facilitator, and I want you to know I feel great. I saw my doctor Monday, and he gave me the best news you could want to hear. My PSA went down. Yay! Now, as you guys know, it's not necessarily the level it's at, but what the level is. Is it going up or is it going down? And mine has been going up. It's been doubling almost every month because I stopped taking all my prostate cancer meds because I got the superbug in the hospital last year, and I've had it for a year. I've gone through 5 treatments. This is because I had the super duper antibiotic that opened me up to what's called C. diff. That's an infection you get in the hospital. I was in there 10 days trying to deal with my pneumonia, and I got C. diff. I got it, and they didn't diagnose it until 6 months later, and I've been under treatment. I've had 5 different treatments. And this last one seems to be working. I seem to be getting better, and but they recommended I back off on the prostate cancer because its side effects and all that doesn't help my recovery of the bug. So I've been off that, watching it climb. So it started to go down. And my goodness, I'm off of it. And what? So Dr. Dotto, wonderful doctor, he said, well, okay, George, I'll have the physician's assistant come in and give you your Firmagon shot and your Prolia shot because you're way behind on those. And I know, let's talk about the new drug I just prescribed for you called Nubeca. And I said, why? He said, why what? Well, why am I going to take it if it's going down, my PSA? Well, you're behind schedule and so forth. And I said, well, why not wait? And he said, wait? You know, he has his protocol. And I said, yeah, want to see what happens. You're okay with that, George? In other words, you won't sue? And I said, let's see what happens because I get a PSA every month. So that's what the plan is. I'm not going to be on those meds for a month, and we'll see what happens. And then I was thinking, I said, well, you know, what's going on? He said, well, I don't know. This is kind of a miracle that you're in this good situation of declining. And it's not a huge decline, but it's significant. See, so that's, I'm significant declining, all right? You like that? If you hear that, that's good news. So what's going on here? So we talked about it. And then I remember my buddy Larry, he had the flu last year and his PSA went up. You know, some of these side effects of other infections and so forth maybe reduces your resilience and ability to fight cancer. And I think that's maybe what I have going on. Because guess what? A wonderful meeting we had last month. We had A.J. Mont and his team, Dr. Rose, Dr. Eink, and it gave a wonderful, they overran, wonderful overrun. And it really invigorated me. And I know it invigorated the audience. We had many newcomers because we started running ads again. We stopped running ads for a while, and then now we started up again. And so us volunteers, after the meeting, we go up to Bristol Farms and talk about the meeting and talk about our diseases and all that sort of stuff. You're welcome to join us if you care to. But what occurred for us was the joy of service that we got. Watching the audience be invigorated. I talked to the newcomers. I said, boy, these meetings are good. and so forth. So, that's some kind of aspect of our cure. Has to do with stuff up here and stuff here that stimulates things besides the damn pelvic region down there. We tend to get so focused on down here that we forget the other parts, particularly this. So I'm overjoyed, and I just wanted to share that with you, okay? Thank you. So I'm going to be incorporating some of this stuff, and my buddy here, Gene, has helped me greatly, as he has throughout the whole program. The arrow going down makes it go forward. Yes, it does. The second one. All right, that's my problem. I want to go forward. It's up. I'll do it this way. Okay, here we go. Welcome. And we're very thankful for this, our host, and the people that allow us to come in here. They have, They have other facilities, too, for you men. Go out the back door, down the hall. If you got prostate cancer, guess what? You have to visit other facilities often. Okay. Now, here are the guys that volunteer that got invigorated by our meeting last month. I'll come back to that. Okay, newcomer package. Has all newcomers gotten a package? At the front page, would you fill it out? That helps us keep a tally, and also Gene will give you a call, and he'll see if you've got any questions. He's got a lot of experience, can help you out, make you familiar with what services we provide, and probably even cheer you up a bit too. And so the front page is what we need. So bring it up at the end of the meeting, please. Okay, here's our support group purpose. Basically, we are here to help you manage your own case. You have to manage your case. Your doctor's got how many patients? 3,000. He spends what? Maybe he spends 10 minutes looking at your case before you walk in. And then he's got how much time he has for you? He's got a jammed schedule, particularly if you're on Medicare. And so you got to go make a copy of every lab report, put it in a notebook paper like John Tassi does, and write your questions down. And that's what this group does for you. We don't prescribe anything, but we tell you, ask your doctor this. So when you leave here today, you may want to say, hey, doctor, what about this? Or what about that? Or how come? Write those down, and when you go see him, take your list out and go down the list and write down the answers. He says, oh, this guy is really disciplined. But we're not a substitute for your doctor. We're not recommending anything for you to do. And so go talk to him. Ask him questions. Our support to you, we have a wonderful website. And how many look at the website this past 2 months? Anybody ever? Okay. It has really a lot of good stuff. We have a newsletter also, but we got a library. Bill Bailey is our librarian. He's not with us today. He's got a commitment, but we got a lot of DVDs and books, and we have free literature out front, and then we have books that you could rent or buy, and we got some bestsellers, and we even got a guy who's writing a new book who's with us today. So newsletter, we have the announcement in the newsletter. Guy over here, Steve, is the editor, and Bill is the one that summarizes the last meeting. And now, the DVDs, if you didn't attend last month, go buy it. only $10. It's very good. It's very comprehensive and covering not just radiation, but the whole subject of prostate cancer. So you'll benefit from that. $10, boy. Then outreach. You're a participant of outreach. You should be outreaching your son. If you've got prostate cancer, he probably is going to higher than average probability of getting prostate cancer also. So he's approaching 50, and you ought to remind him of this. In fact, if you have cancer, he should be maybe getting a test done PSA earlier than that. But we got cards and brochures. Grab some and distribute them. And we started, as I mentioned, advertising it again. I majored in my MBA in marketing and advertising. And a great department store pioneer, John Wanamaker in Philadelphia, said, I know I waste half my advertising. I just don't know what half. So let me ask you about our advertising. How many get the Union Tribune? Raise your hand. All right, not that many, huh? All right, we run an ad in the Tribune, and we run one on Mondays in the sports section, hoping you guys are interested in sports and we'll refer to that. And then on Wednesday, we have it in the front section. And just to remind you, it looks like this down the bottom here. Now, how many saw it this month or last month? All right. Let me ask the newcomers for the last 2 or 3 meetings, did this stimulate you to come? Raise your hand. Okay. You know, one thing about advertising is the frequency. These are reminders. Oh yeah, there's a meeting next week or this week. And if, a lot of people, when they check off the cover sheet of this survey, don't recall why they were triggered to come. And so there's a latent value in running ads that's just hard for us to measure. So let me see again how many came to the meeting because of the ad. All right, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. How many were reminded because of the ad? Okay, so that's about as good as you can get. You know, people will not claim they drink Coors Light because of an ad. It's because it's good. But it's really the repetition of the ad. Okay. Thank you for your participation. Monthly meetings. What do we got next? All right, next meeting. It's here's a person that deals with this. I'm looking forward to that. He's a board-certified psychiatrist. He knows about prostate cancer. He deals with the anxiety and concerns. And I'm looking forward to hearing about this. It gets you out of the pelvic region, up into your top of your head region, which is an important part of our medicine program. So be here next month. Okay, all hands, we're going to do our survey, and this is for the newcomers and for others who are always, how many are here for the first time today? Wow, good for you. Keep those hands up, keep your hands up. You old timers, look at these guys, see? Say hello to them, welcome them, because this is what makes the program go, is our newcomers. All right. How many have been recently diagnosed in the last 9 months or so? So this is a new adventure for you. You got some anxieties and concerns. I remember one. Okay, how many have had prostate cancer for up to 1 year? Raise your hand. We're going to go up the slope here. How many have had up to 4 years? Raise your hand. See, it's going up. 5 to 10 years. Raise your hand. All right. 11 to 15. Okay. Anybody higher? 20.
18.
18. Okay, I got 21. 29, who's that? There he is. All right. You newcomers, see what you got to look forward to? All these meetings are in the future you can attend. Huh? How about that? Okay, we're going to do our treatment survey. Okay, how many have not had treatment but are on active surveillance and getting their PSA measured? Good, good. See, 5 years ago, there weren't that many hands going up. So the urological profession is now recommending more of active surveillance before jumping into surgery. How many have had prostate cancer surgery? Raise your hand. Used to be the gold standard. Now let's go to radiation. How many have had radiation? See, now that's the new one. And some of you have had a number of these. Keep your hands going up. How many are on ADT or have been on ADT? See, that's what I'm on. Chemotherapy. How many are on chemotherapy? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good for you. Good for you. New treatments, all that stuff that costs $10,000 a month or whatever. How many are new treatments? I was, and it works, but upset me. Okay. Recurrence. How many have recurrence? That's what happens if you survive. So does your cancer starts to come back because your cancer, those little devils, they know how to adapt. Okay. Undecided, don't know what to do next. All right, let me ask you another one. Maybe it's a subject we could cover later in the year. Incontinence. How many have incontinence, dribbles to flows, or are worried about it? I got it in spades. I got an old man river. So we'll talk about that at some other meeting. But, here's where the contrast between a doctor and a patient. Can you imagine a doctor walking around with a bag or things like that? He doesn't know what it's like, but he'll recommend it. Or how about the clamp? You clamp your penis. How about that? Wear that all day long? See? So that's what us as patients can tell you what that's like, what works for them and what doesn't work. Because I've tried a variety of these things. Okay, we need your support. Guess what? We need money. If we don't get our average of up to $10, we got to dip in our reserve, so we don't want to have to do that. So let's pass the baskets and make sure they go back and forth down the aisles, pass it on. So if we love zeros, $10 is a good average for us, but give what you can. We're not affiliated with any religious organization or medical. You're tax exempt. Guess what? You're working on your taxes now, and you regret that you didn't give more last year, don't you? So give more this year. Okay. Whoops. I pushed the arrow that goes up.
Gotta watch that.
All right. While you're passing the basket and digging deep, moths are flying up in the air. Okay. Early detection is a key to prostate cancer. Do you want too late detection? Just wait a while, like I did. I had a low PSA of 0.7 after treatment, so I waited 2 years. Don't have to worry about that. After 2 years, they did a PSA without my knowledge. It was 14. from 0.7 to 14 in 2 years. If I'd waited another year, it would have gone to over 200. If I waited another year, it would have gone to 3,000. See, because I have a doubling time of 3 months, and it really starts to take off. So keep getting that. High definition diagnostics, high definition, like parametric MRI, things like that. That old bone scan and some of those others don't show the detail you need to do a targeted biopsy. Down here in San Diego, in contrast to LA, they like to do 12 cores. You women, do you want to imagine doing 12 of those things? 1, 2, 3, 12, and you're not aiming at anything other than little sectors of the prostate. You don't know if there's a tumor there or not. Here with detailed diagnostic, you can aim right at that lesion and get a reading, because then you'll know your Gleason score, and then that determines your treatment. And maybe it's going to be, Gleason is only 6. That means you don't need treatment at that time. You go on active surveillance and avoid all those side effects. And then when it comes to treatment selection, get a second opinion. Talk to others besides a urologist and so forth. So those are our guidelines. Okay, today's agenda. If you saw the ad, we talk about a panel of experts to share their treatment experience. And then we're going to have a breakout session. And here's, if you haven't been in one, here's what it looks like. We're going to have Gene down here for those on ADT, and Bill back there at the camera. He's going to do active surveillance. And let's see, where is Aaron? Aaron, he's had surgery, so you're going to be down front here. And we get a volunteer for radiation. Anybody had radiation? Bill, what have you had? You had radiation? No? I've had radiation. Okay. Wait, you mind going up back up there where you normally are? Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to spend some time on that. And this is for networking, to get to know other people, share their experience, get phone numbers, or just ask questions. It's a valuable supplement to our speaker program. All right, a panel of experts. Guess who our experts are? Volunteers. They don't volunteers. This list, get ready for minutes.
Oh.
Can you do that? 3 minutes. 1 minute. What it was like when you found out you had cancer. And feel first. What happened? Kind of treatment. We don't need the whole. Some of you have, but did you decide next thing and what it's like? How you're doing? And concerns. What we're going to do this, and in a minute, be kind of interviewing you if I, because these, you know, are chairs every meeting. They listen, learn, and hear and share. They benefit. They'll come up on a day, but every 4 years, but they're behind us over here, it's back there, volunteers. The expression players, these are healers. They've been wounded of you, and we're Hey, the wounded healer for you what it's like to treatment, so they can more. Can you hear me now? All right. Wounded healers. We know what it's like to take some of these things and what it takes to cheer each other up. And we've got the joy of doing service. So I'd like them to share that. And we're going to start off with uh, Lyle couldn't make it today, but she's going to cover for him and also for himself. But he's got some announcement he'd like to make. And I'll be down there and maybe interrupt a little bit or ask a question. Come on up, Gene. Now, while Gene is coming up, I want you to know that he is not doing what he used to do. He used to do what I do and what Steve does now and what Bill does now and what Chuck has been doing. Look at all those things he has been doing for years, and he's hard to replace, so we're not going to.
Thanks, George. Everybody hear me okay? Good. I have to lean against this, so I have to speak from the floor. Some notes here. A quick note for significant others. Out in the library, there's a sheet out there from the Australian prostate zone that talks about how significant others can help their partners. I've looked at it. I gave it to my wife and said, "Is this any good?" She says, "I like this." So it's out there on the table, so pick up a copy if you're interested. It's a good site to go to. Since Lyle isn't here, I'm going to talk about him a little bit, and that gives me more minutes, doesn't it? Thank you. Okay. First of all, IPCSG was formed in 1990. That's 30 years, folks. I don't think you'll find any other organization like this that's been around that long. Lyle joined the group in 2000. And he began the process of bringing the group forward. We went through several different locations and so forth. His expertise is he's a very well-known businessman, and he helps promote with the larger businessmen and so forth. Some of you might remember the cruises that were set up. It took a whole bunch of knowledge with very wealthy businessmen to get that going. For his personal status, he had a well-located cancer in his prostate. He refused to have any other treatment than what is called ablation, which is they go in and zap just that very spot. They don't treat the whole thing. And he's been very fortunate that that's all the treatment he ever needed. He has had other problems, and it's part of the reason he doesn't make a lot of our meetings. He can't get around as well. He's a little uncomfortable driving because he, in the process, has lost the sight of one eye. But he had also throat cancer that set him back a little. So he now has property in Mexico, and he spends a lot of time there enjoying himself. But he gets around. The mind is still wonderfully good. And he's a good man to know, and he is the one that encouraged me to get involved in this group, which I did 13 years ago, and help because I'm a retired CFO. I help organize a little better and get things moving a little better. As a matter of fact, he knew Malin Burnham, who had prostate cancer, by the way, and he was able to get this facility for us for nothing. Okay? Can't knock that, sports fans. Okay, so that's all Lyle's done for us, other than getting us going and maintaining us, okay? Quickly, to allude to what John does for us, if you like statistics, we now have a membership of 950 people in the member list, which I keep track of when you turn these forms in. And the last circulation that John sent out through the website, 880 emails went out, 877 were accepted by the emails that it was sent to. That's really good stuff, folks. Anyhow, now you can start with me. I first got prostate cancer in 2002, 18 years ago. Today is my 81st birthday. I wouldn't be standing here talking to you if I hadn't gotten involved with this support group. And the first thing they got me to do was to go see Dr. Richard Lamb, who speaks to our group every year in November. And I've been with him ever since, and he's the man that helps me come through 8 treatments, and I'm now on 7 drugs. So it's just a pattern. You do something, and you find it good. Because, first of all, I did surgery, and it failed, because in those days, they didn't have the imaging that we have now. Remember that, to do the imaging before you ever do the biopsy, so they can see what they're looking at, or going to shoot at. I didn't have that benefit, and they found out when they did the pathology of my prostate. This one's going to work better? Thank you very much. My voice got better. But they found out that the prostate was already outside. So that sets up the process of, in my opinion, there's cancer cells roaming around in your system waiting for a place to happen. And in my case, if I try a treatment, it lasts for 3 to 5 years, and then it starts to fail. So a lot of you have experienced that, and then you have to try another treatment. And fortunately for me, every time I started to fail something, something new came along. And that's the thing that you need to be comfortable with. We're going to find ways to keep you going, especially with the new genetic studies that are going on to define. Right now, it's somewhat trial and error to know which treatment is going to work for you. Okay? So what all did that happen? What's it like today? I'm fine. My PSA is at 1.3. At times it's been down to 0.05. My problem is that when a treatment starts to fail on me, like it did the last time, that it went in 3 months from 0.5 to 15. Okay, so that's why Dr. Lamb helps me work with it. That's unusual. You people won't experience that thing. But I'm feeling well, and I have to tell you that the reason I do that is Dr. Lamb, he didn't beat me up, but he probably should have, to convince me I needed to get in and do exercise, which I didn't want to go to a gym, hated the atmosphere. I now have for 10 years gone an hour a day, 6 days a week, and that helps me overcome all of these bad side effects that people complain about all the time. I just don't have them. That doesn't have anything to do with my neuropathy, but from a cancer standpoint, I'm great. What are you on now? Right now, I'm on Lynparza. Yes. No. Lynparza is one of those that, because Lamb did a genetic study for me and found out that this drug might work for me. It's not, it's approved for use, but not necessarily yet approved for prostate cancer. That's why you need to be with these guys. And I've been on it since June, and it has helped me. And I think also I've benefited much by immune therapies, Provenge and Keytruda. I have benefited by those that kicks up your own system to help you deal with it.
Okay, boy, that's a good model.
How many minutes did I do?
You did excellent. Okay, next we got John Tassi, and come on forward. John, I'd also like to have you mention
Good morning. I'm John Tassi. I'm the actual guy behind the website. And the other thing that we're doing now is pushing out our newsletter and our meeting announcements on Facebook. So that's why I wanted to see if anyone had seen those ads, because if not, we'll have to figure out a different avenue to try to get those pushed out to everyone. So let's see, where my journey started in 1999. I had a normal DRE. That's a finger in the rectum to feel for a lump. That was in 99. I had a 1.1 PSA. I was 44 years old. 2002, fast forward, my PSA was at 2.4, but normal DRE. And interesting, at age 49, I had prostate cancer at that point. The doctors didn't catch it. What they diagnosed me with was BPH. So, of course, they gave me the medication for BPH, and I was able to urinate again. Fast forward, 2007. So from 2004 to 2007, I had one PSA recommended by my doctor. 2007, the doctor said, oh, let's do it. Let's see what it is. It was 19. So he realized, something's wrong. It shouldn't be that high. So I went to my, and you have to excuse me, I have what's called brain fog. So things fall right out of me and I forget, even though it's right here in front of me. So at that point, my urologist did a biopsy, and it came back, was a 14-point random. Had no idea where to stick it. He just kind of stuck it in 14 times. And it came back on the right side, I had a 3+3. Left side was a 3+4, and that's the Gleason score, so that's a 6 and a 7. So based on that, of course, the urologist said, oh, you have to have it ripped out. You have to have surgery. Oh, okay. Oh, I just happen to have an opening in 2 weeks. How convenient. So in February 2008, I had robotic prostatectomy. The doctor that did it did an excellent job. Very little problems afterwards. And the only problem was she didn't get it all. So after the surgery, approximately 6-7 months later, my PSA started doubling every 2.5 months. And that's when, at that point, I went up to go see Dr. Lamb. This group recommended him. I went up and saw him, and he did a little chart. He said, if you do nothing, you've got an 80% chance you'll be dead in 8 years. If you do this treatment in combination with this treatment, you might make it 10 years. If we throw everything in, including the kitchen sink, that's the best we can do and hope it catches it all. So at that point, 7 months later, I went on chemo, which was doxycycline or Taxotere, some know it. Normal injection for that is about 75 micro somethings. I was getting 250. So I was getting much more than they, I don't want to say should give me, more than what the FDA recommends. Reason being is I was young and I could handle it. When we get down later, you'll find out why that was probably important. Then after the chemotherapy, I had 37 courses of IMRT. After that, I went on androgen deprivation with a couple of different agents for 13 months. And at that point, I was doing a PSA every 3 months. And at some point after that, within a matter of 6 months or so, my PSA was undetectable. It was 0 for all practical purposes. Fast forward to today. I'm on no medication. My PSA is still undetectable. That was over 10 years ago. So that's where I am. I would not want to have to go through chemotherapy again, but that's probably one of the key elements in my combined treatment, why I'm here talking to you today. Intensity modulated radiation, and that's where you sit on the table and the head moves around. But what they do is in the projection of the radiation, they have mapped out a course of where they want high beam, medium, and no beam, and it's got a movable fingers that come in and form the beam, and this is done at 9 points. The reason they do 9 points is not one particular area is going to get more than 1/9 of the total radiation except where they're focusing, which was the prostate. Since I didn't have one, where are they going to aim it? The prostate bed. So that's what they blasted during IMRT.
So that's regular radiation. It's not like proton radiation, which they can target and they can. And do you have any side effects from any of those, from any of these things?
If it's listed, I have it. I have neuropathy from chemo in fingers and toes and tongue. I have I now have failing eyesight from the chemotherapy. I have brain issues from the chemotherapy, fog, a bunch of other things. Let's see, radiation. Yeah, got cooked everything. So of course, bladder and rectum, I have problems. And most probably that's what's causing my hip problems, because to come in at this angle, you have to go through the hip. But with all the problems I do have, I'm still here. So, thank you.
Okay, we have Steve coming up here. Yeah, come on up here. Now, Steve, he's our editor of the newsletter. He's a creative guy. He's got jokes in there. He's a good writer and illustrator, and
Well,
one of
I'm
one of
really
the
good at
things
stealing
that,
other people's stuff. That's what it is.
okay. So let's hear about your situation.
I'll try and define my abbreviations.
What's that?
ASAP. Well,
LOL.
yeah. I was an engineer, and I was about 62, and I was diagnosed with, BPH. We are not sure, but I had a high PSA. So they said, well, let's send you in for urology referral. Actually, I went in at age 62, and I said, I'm about ready to retire. I better get a checkout. So they threw in the PSA, and they said, okay, your PSA is over 4, so we better give you a urology referral. So I went up the next floor in the Scripps clinic, and they referred me to a urologist who had me assume the position and did the digital rectal exam, as it is called. It has nothing to do with bits or computers. It's referring to these digits. They insert one of them in an appropriate hole and feel around in there, and they tell you whether you have any lumps or bumps where they shouldn't be. So they said, well, there's something in there that doesn't feel quite right. So we better do a biopsy. And of course, the biopsy had to refer for outpatient surgery and send me over to the hospital. And they put a local gave me a local and bend me over, and the urologist sticks needles in there. And he's got a thing to tell him where the prostate is, but he really can't tell what the needle's going into other than it's in the prostate somewhere. And he came out with one needle out of 16 had a little bit of cancer in it, but it was questionable whether it was really cancer. They send the picture or the slide off to the pathology folks, and they tell you, well, it sort of looks kind of out of shape and might be, possibly could become cancerous, as opposed to it's really a cancer. So I said, well, gee, 1 out of 16 and just random shots. And I did a little research on the web, and I said, oh, well, that's sick. The Gleason of 6 didn't come out to be in one shot out of 16. Says, I really don't have much, and it's slow growing, so I can wait. So I went back 3 years later, and they took another PSA, and I was up above 4 again. Not too high, it was about 7. And he stuck his finger in the appropriate orifice and felt around and said, oh, you don't want to hear that. And so they said, well, you've got a bump on your prostate, so we're going to have to do another biopsy. And so, okay, and did another biopsy. And I was on what I thought was watchful waiting. Well, it didn't have to wait any longer. It came back as it had spread all through one side of the prostate and into the other side, and it was a 7. So I said, well, I guess I got to get surgery. So I looked around on the internet, found this group, looked for the best surgeon I could find, and talked to radiologists, and finally got surgery. And that was over here at UCSD Moores with Dr. Chris Kane, who is a good surgeon. He is expert at robotic surgery, and he managed to give me surgery, and I survived without significant side effects. I got a continent. I had prepared with diapers and everything because I figured I was going to be leaking fluid, and I didn't need them after all that. So that was good. But it took me like 6 months to recover, and then my PSA started going up again. Oh, and the pathology after the surgery, they said, oh, well, positive margins. Positive is negative because that means they didn't get it all. So my PSA started going up again, and I went back in, and he said, well, we're going to refer you to a radiologist. So I went to the radiology people, Dr. Munt and his people, and they gave me Dr. Sandhu as the doctor to cover me. And he did the radiology program. I had 42 treatments, I think it was. No, 32 treatments and total was 72 grays. A gray is a measure of amount of radiation. And that's fairly heavy radiation, but they didn't do any imagery on the cancer. So they were just imaging, they were just radiating the prostate bed where they thought any residual would be left. Well, 2 years after the radiation, it came back again. So I went out to see to get it imaged because I wanted to see where it was coming back. So I went out to Phoenix and Dr. Fabio, and he imaged it with the C11 PET CT, and they found little dots all over, including all the way up by my heart. And so they said, well, you can't have any more radiation because it was spread too wide. So then they put me on Lupron. And I've been on Lupron intermittently. I did some more research on the internet and came up with Zytiga as being a good supplement, because Lupron doesn't really get rid of all your androgen production. With Zytiga added on to Lupron, it reduces the capability of the cells, the receptors, to grab onto androgen. So that means that any androgen you got is not going to work, because the holes are filled up. At least I think that's sort of how it works. But anyway, I went through ADT for about a year, and then I was off ADT, and now I'm at the end of about another 2-year period after that, and it's starting to come back again. My PSA was undetectable for a while, and now it's just starting to come up above 0.06. So I'm trying to decide what the next treatment should be, whether I should go back on Lupron and Zytiga or something else. Anyway, I've been managing to live a fairly good life, and prostate cancer is just something I have to deal with as an ongoing thing. And it doesn't really bother me that much. So aside from costing time and money.
Yay! Any questions?
75.
All right, next we have Bill Lewis. He's the one that summarizes the meeting. And come on up here and tell us about what it was like and what happened and forward.
Okay. I guess I'm one of the ones who had modern prostate cancer, because the first thing that happened when my PSA went up is I went in for imaging, MPMRI, which is multiparametric magnetic resonance imaging. And it showed that I had a suspicious spot in my prostate. And so we had a targeted biopsy in the bore of the MRI machine so that they could hit that spot. And we found that, yes, I had prostate cancer. And so we said, let's see if it spread. So I had a bone scan, and it said there's at least a dozen spots. I tried some alternative therapy for 6 months, and then I had 100 spots. And so that's what they call a super scan, when your bone scan shows that many spots, and your life expectancy is 6 to 9 months. And that was in 2016. So I pulled out all the stops and took a lot of supplements and went on Lupron and the triple blockade that Dr. Leibowitz recommends, which includes Casodex and Proscar. And 9 months later, we couldn't find cancer anywhere. So I then went to this Dr. Leibowitz in Los Angeles. I think I'm the only one going there, but he's a pretty radical thinker, very much outside the box, and he's helped to keep me alive and well and happy today. I have had a little bit of a resurgence, but once I got okay to go back on my supplements, which he didn't want me to do while I had chemo, which he does as a very gentle method. That's pretty cool. And I had a period of Zytiga. I've got a little bit of a resurgence, but it's staying totally flat around 6. So I'm feeling great, and I'm recommending that you consider exercise, which I think is also very important, and that you either go to these folks in Marina del Rey or that you see this Dr. Leibowitz in Los Angeles. I see a question. Robert Leibowitz. It's called the Compassionate Oncology Medical Group, but if you look up Dr. Leibowitz on the internet, it will pop right up. Question here? Yeah, Casodex and Proscar, which is also called finasteride. And now I continue to take the Proscar as well as Avodart, which is dutasteride. He also is giving me an interesting medicine, which is thalidomide, which those of us of our age know is the medicine that caused a lot of birth defects in women who took it for morning sickness back in the 50s, because it prevents blood vessel growth, and these fetuses did not grow arms and legs, they just grew flippers. And most of them died relatively shortly after birth. But this prevents the cancer, if it does want to spread, it prevents it from growing large because those tumors need their own blood supply. The rest of my body already has a blood supply, but the tumors need new blood supply, and this helps prevent that. And so that's what's helping me. He's also giving me an immune system stimulator called leucine, and I'm also taking supplements such as mushroom extracts and so forth that also stimulate the immune system. I saw other questions. Yeah.
I have a question. You're writing a new prostate cancer book. Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, I feel like the good Lord's given me a certain talent for writing. I do the summaries, and people say they enjoy those. And so I thought I'd try my hand at producing a new book. There was a member of this group that wrote a book a number of years ago, but I think it's time for kind of an update. And also, I have this perspective of Western medicine and the supplements and everything else. And so I want to put all of that in a book. And so I've written the first couple of chapters, and if you'd let me know, I can send you those by email. But I look forward to contributing to the options for people by that route. Also, I'd mention that you might consider an organization called Immerman Angels. Immerman is IMERMAN, just one M, and that's a mentor system. And so some of us have, like me, have signed up for that, and they match you with somebody in your own similar situation that says, boy, I'd sure like somebody to talk to. And so I now have 3 people that I'm talking with and helping them through their cancer journey. And that's a really good thing. Yes, sir?
So you mentioned finasteride. I've been on finasteride for about 15 years. And just recently, a year after being told I had prostate cancer, the nurse practitioner told me that finasteride masks the PSA count. And so I did some research on that. And it's interesting because there seems to be a treatment of finasteride for the prostate cancer. But in my case, it's like, I mean, oh my God, I don't really have a 5-point PSA. If you've been taking it for a long time, it's 2.2 times this. And so this is just in the last few days. So I'm curious if anybody else has dealt with the finasteride issue, and if you're taking it to cure cancer, it's actually bringing down the PSA supposedly. And again, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just trying to get information because this was an eye-opener from a nurse practitioner who's working for my urologist, and I hadn't heard it from the doctors before. So I don't know what the effect of finasteride is on the Gleason or that, but, and I don't mean to take up so much of your time, but can you comment any about finasteride?
Yeah, both finasteride and dutasteride tend to reduce the PSA by about half, but you just take that into account when you're looking at your PSA numbers. Chemically, the effect of both of those drugs is to block the conversion of testosterone, which is the main driver of prostate cancer. Technically, it's blocking the conversion of it to a more active form called dihydroxytestosterone, which is 5 times more active in promoting cancer. And so you're blocking that more active version of the testosterone. And I'm very happy to continue taking those. There's essentially no side effects, and I believe it's helping with my overall case. Yeah, my Gleason score was 9, so I'm a dead duck, as they say. Okay, I've got to really hit it hard, and so that's what I'm doing.
These supplements that you're taking, where do you find those at, and why do you research
those? Generally there's a number on the internet. I had a doctor who's since moved away who was a naturopath type person in addition to being a regular doctor, and he recommended some. And if we can follow up if you want to give me info, I can give you my new card. I've got an IPCSG card that Gene just made for me, so I can pass those out. Yes. I do. Yeah. I make my own little capsules, and I take 4 a day, along with black pepper for absorption. Yeah, for absorption. Yeah.
Does one of your chapters elaborate more on the supplements?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things that I feel that will be different about most other prostate cancer books, because there's a lot out there, but it's all just about the standard stuff.
You say you would share
I've done the first 2. They aren't the supplements yet, but yeah, I'll share them with anybody that wants them.
You do 1 or 2 more supplements, such as your turmeric or whatever else it is you're using.
Yeah, another one that I feel is really important is a mushroom extract. It's got kind of a funky name. It's agaricus, Agaricus, blazei, Blazei. So agaricus mushroom extract is a good immune system stimulator. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll give it back.
All right. Who's next? Jim?
Bill Manning.
I know.
Skipped over Bill.
I skipped Bill. Oh, excuse me, Bill. You want to put it on focus lock? Come on down. Here he comes. He's the guy you don't get to see. That red dot is not big enough. Here we go. Here we go.
Testing. I'll stand over here since I pointed the camera this way. Hi. I was diagnosed in 2009. I was 57 at the time with 3+3 Gleason. They found 1 core out of 12 that had, quote, cancer in it. And I was immediately recommended for surgery. And that didn't sound right. So I was given the other option of seeing a radiologist, which I wasn't quite so sure about that either. So I went ahead and did some research, and probably the best thing that I did was finding this group, which really pushed the education and being informed part. So given that my wife was pretty skeptical about the whole thing, and she felt that if you have cancer, you have an operation, she agreed to more research, more time to look into this. I went and saw Dr. Bond in Ventura, got what was a color Doppler ultrasound, something that's kind of fallen out of favor over time because the MRIs have kind of taken its place, but at the time it was a very effective tool for getting a better picture of what was going on. And so with Dr. Bond's blessing that I didn't need anything done, I didn't have anything done. And so to the consternation of my urologist, I told him I was going to go on active surveillance. And that's a bit of a long story with him, but to speed things up, I had 4 color Dopplers over the ensuing years. Each one showed about the same thing, about 2013. Dr. Bond talked me into another biopsy, which I had been basically resisting. And at that time, he said he had I actually told him I didn't want one. And he said, well, if I find something suspicious, would you get one? I said, if you find something suspicious, I'll get one. So he said he found something suspicious. What a surprise. But no, seriously, I trusted him emphatically. So he did a targeted biopsy, and the area that looked the worst, he said, you know, this really doesn't look like cancer to me. So I sent that off, got another pathology opinion on it, and they also said, well, you know, that doesn't exactly look like cancer to me. I had BPH big time. My prostate was large and continued to grow. My PSA ranged from 5 to 8, bounced all over the place. But meanwhile, this just told me that active surveillance was the correct method. So then that graduated into MPMRIs. I've now had 3. The last one was last year, done by imaging healthcare specialists here in San Diego. And all 3 have come back with basically the same conclusion that, yeah, I've got some screwed up cells in there, but we don't really want to call them cancer. So you might say, technically, I don't have cancer. Now, that isn't necessarily true because, after all, it can hide, it can still be avoided by the MRI. There's, you know, it's not 100% sure, but there's nothing that is 100% sure. You just give it your best shot. So for me, giving it the best shot was no treatment and staying basically in a active surveillance mode, which means 2 PSAs a year, a DRE. I'm having an MPMRI every other year. If something seriously changes, I would up that. I would have an MRI sooner, maybe more PSAs. But for the last 11 years, this has worked very, very well for me. And again, I have this group to thank for a large part of it. That's why I've been shooting videos for it for the last 10 years and trying to help out others that come across that problem. So,
Thank you.
That's
thank
it.
you. Any questions? Any questions?
Yes. What's your Pirates score, Pirates rating?
my PIRAD, 2. All 3 MRIs were PIRAD 2. Yes, sir.
Were your MRIs localized or were they full body?
Localized.
So have you ever had a full body?
No.
Would that possibly help in any of your decision?
I don't believe so. As far as the doctors that I've conferred with, the fact that if I had a PSA of 20 or 30 or something really outside the norm for me, I think that would be something worth doing. But my PSA has, I think my first PSA in 2000 was about 2. And now, of course, it ranges between 6 and 8. Actually, between 5 and 8. But it's been a real slow climb. My prostate has been in a slow growing phase. And yeah, there's such a direct correlation between the two. It's impossible to escape that. So that does not give me any worries. Yes, sir.
What did you ever do with your enlarged prostate, BPH?
Well, I tried Avodart for almost a year. It didn't really do any good. And right now, as far as the enlargement goes, there's not much that I'm actually doing. I am taking Flomax, which is basically for a side effect rather than, directly affecting the size of it. The good news is that it shrunk on the last MRI ever so slightly, but slightly is still good. I'm happy that it's finally, I hope, stopped. Bill?
Yeah, aren't you fighting this with your diet?
Yes, I did alter my diet, kind of, well, I don't want to say radically, but part of the course of my active surveillance was whatever I can do that doesn't have to do with a surgeon. So part of that was altering my diet, and I went on largely what I guess you could call a 90% vegan diet at that point. So is there a correlation between that and nothing ever getting worse? Very, very possible. Could I guarantee that? No, of course not. But there's also health benefits for that angle too. So the answer is yes.
I thought you mentioned DRE. What does it stand for?
Digital rectal exam. It was explained earlier in very almost graphic detail.
How old were you when you were diagnosed, and how old were you when you were diagnosed? How old are you now?
I was 57 then. I'm going on 68.
Do you use supplements?
I use a few supplements. I take a D3, vitamin D3 with a magnesium and turmeric additive in it. I also take B12. That's one thing that sometimes can be an issue with people that don't eat meat. And so just to make sure, I take that. And in my recent exam, physical, all the blood work showed I did have my B12 checked. Check. D3, check. Calcium, check. Everything, check. So, there you go.
Yes, I was wondering if you could explore the possibility of HERB and whether you think there's any chance that might lower your overall risk of cancer.
Repeat the question.
Turp,
Yeah, repeat the question.
he was asking.
The operation to remove some of the prostate.
Right. That's what a TERP is. Right. I've looked into it. As far as a treatment for cancer, I would not do it for that, because as far as everybody seems to come to the conclusion that I don't really have cancer anymore. But as far as urination problems, well, okay, there's, a consideration. But, honestly, anything invasive like that, I want to avoid like the plague. I mean, until it gets to an unbearable point for me, I'm not doing anything. So.
So you said you were doing MP MRI,
Yes.
so you never did have any biopsies?
No, I did. My first biopsy was in '09, and that's when they found one core that had cancer. And then 4 years later, I had another one done by Dr. Bond, a targeted biopsy, where. Pardon? Your first one? No, correct. The first one was random, 12, just shoot them in there and have fun. Then the Dr. Bond did 7 that were targeted, particularly in the area that he found what he called suspicious cells, and also, coincidentally, it was in the area where that very first sample was found that had, quote, cancer in it. So it was 2 biopsies. Make it quick. I'm being removed. I'm going to be up here by the camera afterwards if you want to come up and ask me some
breakout
questions.
session. He'll be on breakout session. All right. I just want to mention something personal about myself. Thank you, Bill. I'm different. All right. So what happened? I came in here exactly 10 years ago, February. And I learned from this gentleman here. I had a Lupron shot, a 3-month shot, which Lupron threw me for a loop. Hot flashes immediately. I was dizzy. I had all kinds of problems. I then got AFib, and I got a stroke. That's what Lupron can cause in 10% or less. I had a very bad reaction. This guy saved my life because I came in here and he grabbed hold and told me some things. It worked for me. Don't take any more Lupron. Take Avodart and Casodex. Avodart reduces and focuses on the dihydrotestosterone, which is, as you heard, 5 to 10 times more potent of the testosterone. You don't have to knock out, in my case, all the testosterone. So here's George, when I was going to give me a Lupron shot, he said, this was a urologist, I don't see him anymore. He said, we need to get rid of your testosterone. I said, what is it now? I'm a engineer scientist. Well, we don't know, but we need to knock it down. Aren't you going to measure it? No, I don't need to. So he gave me the shot. And then afterwards, I said, well, what's my testosterone now? Well, we don't need to know. It's low. And, it's like putting oil. You need oil in your engine without using the dipstick. And then after putting oil, you have enough. So this is where my brain functions differently. So this guy here, although he's an accountant, he got my attention. So I went on Avodart Casodex. My testosterone went back up to 550. I felt great. My dihydrotestosterone went from 30 to 2. I survived, and I was healthy and alert. I still had some sex drive for 8 years. And then the Casodex and Avodart started to decline in effectiveness, and then I had to go on not Lupron, Firmagon. See? So that's my story. It's controversial when I talk to, because most urologists want to give you Lupron, et cetera, et cetera. I'm an exception. It worked for me. What I find of value for me is to have a path forward. I know what I'm on now. If that doesn't work, there's another one coming up that I can use. So I always kind of focus on what is my path forward. Okay, now, what's the path forward for George? I'm 87. I feel good. I have energy and I'm enthusiastic, but I can't stand up here for another 3 years. You want a 90-year-old guy up here? No. So I am getting somebody to come in and help me out for this year, and then if he cares to take over. So let's meet a new volunteer, Aaron Lamb. Would you come forward here? Now, right away, we see eye to eye. Now, let's hear from Aaron here. He's a young guy, but he's got experience.
All right, I won't go into the level of detail that you've already heard, because pretty much, yeah, I have bits and pieces of what everyone else has gone through. I've had surgery. I've had what one doctor actually called active surveillance, but forget that. I've had surgery, radiation, ADT, the advanced treatment with Zytiga, and today I am off of everything. I've been off of everything for. My last Zytiga pill was just before Thanksgiving. My last Lupron shot were off around mid-December, and I'm seeing daily changes, improvements in my cognition, my body. I actually smell when I sweat now, which I certainly didn't miss the last couple of years. But it's quite interesting to see the effects that all these things have on your body as well as your mind. And so my next checkup is just I think about 3 weeks away, and so I'm excited to still see a 0 PSA and see a non-zero testosterone. Let's see what else. Yeah.
How do you feel now?
I feel great, and like Gene, I listened to the oncologist. I hit the gym. I was going 3 days a week. I probably did not do enough impact type of training. I was on the elliptic trainer a lot because my knees hurt, and so my skeleton did take a little bit of some damage from the Zytiga and Lupron. But the belief is that the density of my bones will also bounce back. So I'm going to be having another DEXA scan in December, and hopefully we'll see an improvement there. Any questions?
So what should you have done to avoid the bone issue when you were on whatever you were on?
Right. I think that I was not taking enough calcium, in addition to not having more impact. Heavy-duty impact exercise, meaning like rather than being on the elliptic trainer, I probably should have been on a treadmill or outside running around. A little bit more pounding on my legs, do more of like the heavy squats with heavier weights and so forth. I did a general like full body, like let's keep those muscles going so that I don't lose muscle mass. But yeah, certainly for the bones, I would have taken more calcium. I'm not too familiar with anything beyond vitamin D3 that I was also taking, whether there was anything else that would have, yeah, D3. There's like different forms of vitamin D, and I guess D3 is the one that's most beneficial, especially with helping to absorb calcium into your bones. And so I don't know if there was any other supplements that I could have been taking. Certainly my calcium on the blood test was perfectly normal, and that's why I was not taking any additional calcium beyond like I would have like 1 pill a day. Now I'm taking 2 pills a day of a calcium citrate type supplement.
He's
I think there was another question.
back out.
We had heard you before,
Yeah.
so could you just share a shortened version of your experience?
Yeah.
Because I think it really would impress people.
Sure, okay. So when I was 39, my wonderful doctor that I'd been going to for 10 years was like, you're getting close to 40, let's do a PSA test on you. And that PSA test came back, and I had a PSA above 9. And a different doctor looked at the results of that, and he said, you're too young for prostate cancer. We'll give you a couple DREs, we'll throw you on some saw palmetto, we'll throw you on some other things like turmeric and so forth. And 3 months later, my PSA was 11. And he's like, that's odd. Why didn't that work? Let's try some other supplements. Let's change your diet with eliminating dairy, and so forth. Next month, PSA is 12. And then I started getting ill from the amount of nutraceuticals that this guy was telling me to take. And so I said, I don't even have any physical symptoms. I feel fine. I'll deal with this once I have physical symptoms. And so once I did go back and go to a urologist, once I was having difficulty with urination, my PSA was around 15 or 16. And 4 months later, when I actually had an operation, my PSA was 19. And that surgeon who, through the checks that I'd made was, supposedly a good surgeon, he got the results back and he was like, oh, cancer was a little bit further out than we thought, and it was in the lymph nodes, the seminal vesicles. And he said, you need to go over to Moore's Cancer Center for more treatment. And I said, well, who should I talk to there? And he was like, I don't know. And I thought to myself, wow, so this guy has never seen a patient like me that he's not caught early enough. And that really scared me. I mean, I certainly have gone through a lot of psychological trauma. When I started going down this road of treatment, I was single. I have a wonderful, a very supportive girlfriend now, and we're even looking towards getting married and even having kids. So like from where I was, even to the fact where I just thought I was worthless, given, trying to go through cancer, starting ADT, losing all sexual function, I thought I was absolutely worthless as a partner, and I am completely the opposite now. And even, I think as I said in that meeting, I wouldn't actually give up the journey that I've been through. Because, sure, it's very unfortunate and so forth, but just especially the mental changes I went through during ADT that made me much more empathetic to others and just thoughtful of others' situation and, in comparison to my own, like it has changed me permanently. And that's part of the reason why I'm going to volunteer for the group. One last question over here.
Yes, sir. A question to yourself and anybody else in the room. My doctor keeps talking about PSA is the end-all, know-all, do-all test for whether you're going up, down, or sideways. Does anybody have anything else other than PSA?
Yes, there are several other measures taken.
Yeah.
There are lots of tries at getting better metrics for measuring your cancer potential without having to cut. They have PSA plus or H, I think it is, which includes several other measures and has a higher positive and lower false negative. One of the problems with PSA, there's a lot of false negatives and there's a lot of false alarms because it's triggered by lots of other stuff besides cancer, like prostate infections. The big thing now is genetic testing to supplement PSA. Up until now, that's been primarily family history that they've taken. But now they have specific genes that they can look for along the lines similar to what women have for breast cancer. The BRCA gene particularly, they can do gene screening. There's an article in the newsletter this month about it. And it can tell you what your relative risk of cancer is and enhance your odds of whether you need to do more serious investigations better than PSA.
Okay, I'm going to stop this session, but let's thank our speakers. Wonderful job. And now we're going to a breakout session.